Hello and welcome to the coronavirus lockdown live stream, the show that brings welcome levity to the end of the world, lifting the spirits of many of you currently in self-isolation by infecting as many as possible with comfort and distraction as the apocalypse unfolds. If you saw our last show, or if you've been following the Random Seeders channel, you will know that I am not in the bunker. That should be self-evident. I am actually on holiday on the Croatian coast, having kind of a lockdown holiday because we're in a very isolated location. You may be wondering why I'm wearing my jacket. It's because it's actually quite cold this morning. Usually it warms up as the day progresses, but at this precise moment, it's very cold and blustery. So if you see me frantically grab my gear at any point, or if the whole thing descends into farce, you know that more than likely it's the meteorological elements that have conspired to bring this lockdown live stream to an end. But hopefully that won't happen. We'll see what we can do. How on earth are you all? Let's have a quick look at the comments. Gosh, lots of comments coming through. Gabrielle Spedding says, finally, something fun to watch before going to work. Well, don't miss work. Don't be late for work, Gabrielle. Don't lose your job on account of our humble lockdown live stream. Debbie Aquino says, greetings to everyone. Looking forward to the program. And some party emojis. She's in a very partying mood, that Debbie Aquino. Rianne says, hello, apostate gang. Hello, Rianne. Hope you're feeling okay after recent developments. Let us know if you can in the comments what the latest is where you are. I certainly get asked. It's at the point where I'm being asked about your estate, and I'm like, well, we find out when we go on the lockdown live stream. Rianne lets us know. Paige Lundy says, hey, there's a smile and there's a wave. Thank you so much, Paige. Simon Instone wishes everyone a good morning. Christine Williamson Law knows all about wind and blustery conditions because she is saying hi from Cumbria. Hello, Christine. Beautiful, beautiful part of the UK, in case anyone's interested. Eric Larson says, hello, everyone. Hello, Eric. Deborah Green says, oh my, it's late. I won't be able to stay for the whole program. Deborah, that's the beauty of the lockdown live stream. We haunt you well beyond when the show ends. The show gets uploaded to the John Cedars YouTube channel, and you can watch it at your leisure. It's just that you won't be able to comment while we're talking, which you can at the moment, which it seems you are doing. Mike Mesher says, good morning, Lloyd, and loyal followers. Gosh, that sounds a bit messianic. Please don't be a follower of the cult type. Do be a follower of the social media type, though. Those are always welcome. Cliff Henderson says, good evening, everyone. Hello, Cliff. How are you? Cliff obviously joined in the last episode, and Cliff, you're more than welcome to join in this one. I'll send you a link at some point, and if you feel like hopping on, please do. Melanie Yautzi says, I've probably mispronounced the name, says, hello, my friends. Hello, Melanie. Angela Weiss Gledenhuis is in the house. So now we're getting the updates because Deborah has asked Rianne, are you feeling better? Rianne says, it's getting better. I think I'm through the worst. Well, that is wonderful news. Always good when you're battling COVID-19 to be through the worst. That's an excellent stage to be at. So that's really good news to start the day with. So John Preston is working. Meanwhile, I'm listening. Excellent. Excellent. Well, I hope that our banter brings you not too much distraction, just the right amount of highly calibrated distraction so as not to interfere with your productivity. Eric Larson says, so did John Cedars win out over Lloyd Evans as the name of the channel? Well, Eric is referring to a Twitter poll in which I floated the idea of changing the name of my channel to Lloyd Evans. which isn't like an urgent thing I'm thinking of doing. It's just been on the back of my mind for a while. And I thought, why not do a non-binding referendum on Twitter? This time it's truly a non-binding referendum. And I think that, ironically, the result was similar to Brexit, although the Remain vote won this time. So the Remain vote won by, what was it, 51 or 52% versus 48 or something like that. I haven't decided yet, but it's nice to know that if I were to change for any reason, it wouldn't be met with the kind of backlash that one might fear. You don't want to mess with the John Cedars subscribers. That's what I found. They're a fearsome bunch. Amanda Thomas says hello from Cambridge, UK. Hello, Amanda. Sonia Fonovich says enjoy in every moment over there. Greetings. We are having a wonderful time. Again, if you want to keep up with my exploits on the island of Pag, what you need to do is subscribe to not the John Cedars channel, but the Random Cedars channel, where the rule is anything but JW. So, and actually the beauty of uploading our family holiday videos to the Random Cedars channel is that we can give the links to Deanna's parents back home, and they can follow along with our holiday, and they're not watching an apostate channel. They're just watching us talking about, again, anything but JW stuff. So that's where you can find our holiday videos. And I've tried to make them as interesting as possible because I know how boring holiday videos can be. Heg Langurgen, I've probably, again, butchered the pronunciation, says good morning, and that seems to be a Norwegian flag, if my knowledge of flags serves me well. Deborah Green says, it was miserable today, wasn't it? 102 today at my place. Is that in, I'm assuming that's in Fahrenheit. If it was in Celsius, you'd be dead. So that sounds like a nice warm temperature. A bit too warm, if anything. Tony Nothnagel is saying hello from South Africa. A nice spread of locations, it must be said. You could even say that the lockdown live stream is being spread to the most distant parts of the earth, bringing good news, if you will. So read into that what you will. It could be that we are fulfilling prophecy, folks. Don't write it off. You'd be surprised how people play on that sort of thing. John Preston says, yes, I am entertained as much as possible in limits of my work. And Debbie Aquino says it was 102 degrees this afternoon in California. What's the temperature in Pag? Not 102 degrees, I can tell you, because it is, well, it's 20, there's no other way of saying it, 20 to 9 in the morning, and therefore conditions are still quite blustery and cold and frigid. And I had a bit of a nightmare setting up my microphone so as not to capture wind noise. And as I'm speaking, I'm actually holding on to my light in case it blows over. So I'm about to bring the panelists on. And if the panelists are listening, don't be afraid to tell me to mute my microphone, because it could be that I don't want the wind noise to interfere with our show. So with all of that out of the way, and I will continue to dip into the comments like a pick and mix as the show progresses. Let's bring in our green room. So we have Naomi, we have Sasha, and we have Arthur. How are you all?
Good. How are you?
Hey. Well, I've just stepped out of my bed the past 3 minutes.
You look amazing, Arthur, for having just stepped out of your bed. Yeah. No makeup, no hair.
Everyone wants to look like that when they've just stepped out of their bed. I'm just glad he's not in his. I'm just glad he's not in his. Oh, good grief! Can you hear the wind? I'm just glad he's not in his Hugh Hefner smoking jacket like he was on one of the shows. That was
as long as you don't wear your birthday suit to bed, then we're okay.
It's one of those where you're praying that the laws of physics keep that thing in place, rather than slipping off at any point. So there we go. Lovely to have you all with us.
Likewise. And it sounds okay. We're not hearing any of the buffeting.
We can't hear it. Yeah,
no, it's good.
You can't hear it, but I can.
Yeah.
So
that sounds good.
Actually, let's do one of the segments so that I can try and bring in Cliff if he wants to join us. He might not. It might be too late where he is, but I'd like to get a link across to him. Are we in a position to delve into the box? This is All Things Bible.
Yes.
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 Excellent. Let's do that. And just a reminder that I was a little bit confused when I put this intro together. Naomi's Bible Box.
Well, I continue to be amazed at my intro there. So the point of this section is to come up with a pitch for a TV show based on a Bible story. And today we've got an interesting one. It's actually it's kind of. Well, I'm not going to give anything away. So male contestants on the show, they're going to work for 7 years on a farm for free. And at the end of the 7 years, the winner gets to choose a woman they want to marry. Ideally.
Does she get a choice?
What's that?
Does she get a choice in it?
Yeah, he chooses the woman that he wants to marry.
No, does she get a choice?
No, this is not about, well, I think, no. But ideally, she'd be a cousin or a relative. That's key.
Obviously.
Obviously. Yeah. At the wedding, though, this is important. At the wedding, the groom can't see the bride throughout the whole ceremony and through the party and through the wedding night. The wedding night is in complete darkness, and he only sees her in the morning. And that's when he realizes he's married somebody else.
That could go very wrong, couldn't it?
Exactly. Someone who he finds very unattractive. So I imagine that's a cousin from a different side of the family. He then has to work for another 7 years on the farm for free to marry the bride of his original choice. And that show is called Married in Blindside. And the tagline for that is The Morning After Spill.
Oh.
So, yeah.
I think that will get greenlit by every network. That's brilliant.
I reckon. Yeah, it's got some long-term potential. I think 7 years on a farm, that brings in the viewers.
Or it could be a Black Mirror episode. Because there's like a disturbing element to it, isn't there?
There is. It's terrifying.
That's actually a good point. The Bible itself, maybe the Bible was just...
the Bible is just one long Black Mirror pitch, to be honest. Let's face it.
It would be so much easier to swallow if it was, actually.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant.
I am very sure that JW Broadcasting would...
Unfortunately, we've lost Arthur's audio just as he was launching into an extremely triggering. And we have Cliff with us.
Hey, Cliff.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Not bad, yeah.
What's going on?
Are you just walking around your room in circles as we speak?
Yeah, something like that. It's 11:44 at night here on the West Coast in California, and I'm just up for some reason, just having a little beverage and just hanging out. So yeah,
it's gonna be good.
What are you doing?
When you say a little beverage, is that in quotation marks?
It's a little beverage.
Oh, right.
Cognac, Hennessy. That's my.
It's a Tony Morris type of little beverage.
Yeah.
Got you.
Something like that. Yeah. I learned from the best.
Undoubtedly.
The most holy.
Well, I'm so glad that you could join us. Wonderful.
Yeah, nice to be here.
Let's just go through a few of the comments.
While you do that, I'm just going to make sure we get a little bit of a plug here for some of the merchandise available.
Thank you, Sasha, for modelling the latest range of Reluctant Apostate apparel that you can pick up on Teespring. Yeah,
there we go. So if anybody else would like to make sure that their apostasy is radioactive, please make sure you pop into Lloyd's store and pick up a t-shirt.
Looking good there, Sasha. So Kilo Ratty says hello from California. I hope you're not working too hard streaming your holiday and are relaxing a lot off camera. Yes, I am relaxing a lot off camera. To be honest, we're kind of learning. It's like a little bit of a learning curve, because when we're back home, we have Deanna's parents to help out with the children, and now it's just us looking after the children. But we're still managing.
Where are they now, Lloyd? Just out of interest?
They're literally a couple of meters away from me inside.
Within sight, that's good.
Within sight, yeah. But yeah, we're definitely learning more of the parenting thing now that we have concentrated time together with them. But I like to, without wanting to speak too much on Deanna's behalf, I think we are having a relaxing holiday. Hopefully that comes across in the Park Diary videos.
Yeah, that'd be great. It looks like a beautiful part of the world. Absolutely gorgeous.
We've just won the Airbnb lottery, frankly. It can go either way sometimes, but we've done well, yeah.
I was fascinated by that musical
sea
organ set up at the ocean in that town.
The sea organ, in Zada.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I was talking to Deanna about this. I mean, it's not like that's the noise that the sea is making all the time. It's just the noise it happens to make on that particular piece of architectural installation in that particular part of the world. But it's still a very interesting thing to hear noises that the sea is making. And there is whether it's just pattern seeking or not, I don't know, but there is a little bit of a pattern to it when you're listening to it. So yeah, interesting. Yeah. Tracey Jeffery says, hang on, I got to go get a wine. Anyone want one?
I need a top up, Tracey. Yeah, I need a top up.
Yes. It's not wine, but cheers nonetheless, Tracey.
Yeah, exactly.
Moved on. Cliff has long moved on from the wine, Tracey.
Yeah.
And by the way, if we have some good red wine, then why not have a bit of exquisite
I've turned off Arthur's mic because he's just being creepy at this point.
I was just making reference to the
sophistication. Why not get some sophistication with the wine?
Thank you, Arthur.
I thought you were going to say unleavened bread.
Some lyrics from Down Under.
Yeah.
Deanna Moreno, randomness is amazing. Hopefully that's a reference to the Random Seeders channel, which I cannot plug enough because I still haven't broken past 1,000 subs on that yet, and I'm kind of hoping I might at some point.
Yes.
Rianne says, right now I get special physiotherapy counseling to improve my breathing. So again, Rianne is through the worst with her COVID-19, and it looks like receiving treatment to improve the flow of oxygen. So that's very good to hear. Nice. That she's getting the proper care, and again is through the worst. Marilla Pink says, hi from New Zealand. We are loving the PAG update, so that's good to hear. I'm enjoying making it. It's a little bit of a challenge doing one video per day, but when it's only like 10 to 15 minutes, it's actually not so difficult. So for now, I'm happy to keep it going. Eric Larson says, I'm very much enjoyed the PAG Diaries, a nice glimpse into the wonderful Croatian coast, and lots of Jessica, certainly the star of the show. Yeah, she certainly knows how to hog the camera, which is no bad thing when you're shooting a family holiday video. So Nesbo9 says, any news on Morris's descendants? #tenterhooks. So we did actually do, it wasn't on the video, but we did do a brief foray to see if we could find a church that might have Anton Skiteralic's, that might have been the place where Anton Skiteralich was christened. And we drew a blank, but I'm in contact with this lady back in the States who is not a never been a JW, but is into genealogy and that kind of thing, and has taken this on as kind of a hobby. And so I have another email which I glanced at this morning, but I want to read it properly because there's another possible line of inquiry that we might take. But if I'm going to basically do what I can while I'm here, because we're only about 20-25 minutes away from the town of Pag on the island of Pag. So it's, that's the place really to do research. So if we can find any more leads, I will certainly pursue them while I'm here. And Claire Nollet says, how do you do those amazing drone videos when I don't see a remote in your hands? So Claire is referring to... Yeah, so there was... Claire was referring, I think, to when I was at there's like a sightseeing monument on top of the hill, and the new drone that I have has a quick shot function, so that you can do just a typical. Either it will circle round or it will go away from you up into the sky, and it just gives you a countdown of 3 seconds, which is enough to put the controller down and then look at the drone. So that's how I did those. But I'm enjoying my drone, even though I'm still mourning the loss of my old one.
The monument you were standing on too, I noticed it had an acoustic property to it as well, with the way the sound came around, or was that just random?
Probably unintentionally. It was just when you stood in the middle that all the walls captured your voice. Yeah, so yeah,
I thought it was like one of those whispering walls or something.
No, I think it was probably unintentional, but it was still pretty cool. Yeah, a really interesting place, and I'm hoping we can go back there and get some family shots, so it's not just me there. But yeah, some nice comments there. Thank you. Please do keep them coming, and as I get a chance, I will dip in to these comments. But I know what we all need at this point, and it's a little bit of sophistication, a little bit of culture. I feel.
That's why Clip's
here.
It's
time. It's time for
right.
Sasha
That's why I'm here.
Well, we want to bring some positivity today, so this is just a little bit of an upbeat, positive one. Through these times of upheaval on the world stage, it's been interesting to observe both kindness and rage, to see how many people choose to respond to situations and challenges that can fracture or bond. It's evident that what's occurring leaves us all reeling as we desperately navigate the emotions we're feeling. If I'm truthfully honest, yes, I personally confess the unfolding situation have at times caused much stress. But one thing we know, yes, a given reality, is that we can be strong and regain a normality. We can look to the future with a positive vision rather than giving into fear, fights and division. Yes, another thing we know is humanity will cope. We will move forward with confidence, positivity and hope. So as stability returns and the world starts to normalize, let's maintain the momentum and work together to strategize. The methods we use, yes, our very modality, will bring us out the other side with a positive mentality.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you, Sasha.
Thank you.
And we have someone on the lockdown live stream who makes it his craft to find rhymes in words. And Cliff, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being extremely likely, how likely are you to plagiarize those lyrics for one of your tracks?
You know what? I haven't yet been able to put my quarantine emotions into words. So the fact that Sasha has been able to do that, he's got a 10 in my book. Yeah. Sasha always comes through with some very thoughtful lines, so I appreciate it. Yeah, I haven't worked up to that point yet, but I'm working on it.
If I know Sasha, he's going to want you to put those words on a certificate, sign it, and send it to him. So just a heads up there. But no, that was a very nice poem. Thank you, Sasha.
Yeah,
thank you.
Was very nice.
I mean, that's what we're all here for, isn't it? It's to build people up and to be positive. This was all coronavirus lockdown live stream was born out of the fact that people were, subjected to a situation of unprecedented. So it's good to get together and help build one another up.
How's Sherry, by the way?
Good. She's working at the hospital at the moment. I've just texted her to see if she could quickly log on from her phone to say hello to everybody. She's doing really well. The hospital seems to be doing well. The situation in Australia is very good. Of course, there's still room for caution, and there's still risk of second wave taking place. But at this stage, the hospital is feeling like things are under control here very well. Like, we've actually been very fortunate in Australia.
That's excellent. Sorry, Naomi, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to ask. It's a good question about how long you're going to be doing these lockdown live streams, because the lockdown is going to vary, isn't it, from country to country when they start to free it up and stuff.
Indeed. Well, again, there isn't a lockdown in place at the moment in Croatia, hence why I'm on holiday.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of viewing it already as like an inter lockdown holiday, because even though Croatia's done very well in terms of keeping the rate of infections and deaths down, they're already saying there's probably going to be another spike in autumn.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm going to do it until autumn, but I can see, as far as I'm concerned, while different countries continue to be in lockdown, I see a role for the lockdown live stream.
Right.
So I don't really have an end date in mind as of now. While it continues to be an issue around the world, let's keep doing it.
Yeah. And these are not just our events. These are for everybody who listens in and tunes in. We've had so many people drop us all messages collectively and individually saying that they enjoy being able to contribute, and all of you possibly can't list every single message that comes through to you during the broadcast, but we want to say to everybody, this is your broadcast. This is not about us. This is about all of you and the sense of community that we feel. You're not alone, and it's amazing. As you said, worldwide brotherhood earlier, Lloyd. You said we're covering the whole globe with our.
Some might say that we're fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Our whole association of brothers and sisters.
Clear evidence of direction.
Jehovah's hand and the direction of the Holy Spirit.
Should we all drink now? That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was we should all.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of doing it automatically.
Arthur's a bit like the bug. He's adapting. He's learning to be triggering in as few words as possible, so that by the time I reach for the mute button, he's already finished.
And I have one more suggestion, Lloyd. You could make a playlist on the John Cedars channel and put all the episodes of the lockdown live stream.
There already is
in one
playlist.
Oh, is there?
There is, yes.
Hey,
unless I've been doing it wrong.
Arthur, there's one thing I've had quite a few people drop messages saying they'd like to see all of your songs clipped together with just one long video of just your songs to keep them company.
That is a genius idea, and then upload it to Spotify.
Ooh.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I said I should go to the studio and record all these songs I did for the live stream. and have them as high quality tracks.
Yeah,
I think it would be good therapy for you, Arthur. If nothing else, you should definitely look into doing that. Win Zukon says, Lloyd, you didn't fully explain how the new drone returned to you, or maybe you did and I missed it. Yeah, I watched the video back and thought I didn't really explain that very well. DJI drones have a return to home function that kicks in if anything goes wrong. And I just assumed that hadn't kicked in because of the strong winds. So I assumed it had somehow crashed. And so I raced off looking for it. And when I say racing through the fields, these aren't really fields. They're more like piles of rocks. So it's like clambering over piles of rocks. And if you also saw on the video, it's kind of snake season where we are. So I was a little bit mindful of snakes as well. But I didn't realize that the drone had just realized that something had gone wrong and had literally just flown back to where it took off from. So I went back to the beach.
There were snakes on the plane. Not the plane, but the plane.
Boom. But no,
I had it with these snakes on this plane. Enough
Snakes
is
in a
enough.
field, not on a plane. But yeah, really clever piece of technology. I'm really impressed at how it just knows to go back to where it took off from. So I was really pleased with that. Because again, I'm still quite sore over losing my old drone. Beetroot Soup says, I've been loving the Pag Diaries. Feel like I'm there with you. Thank you so much. And Nesbo9 says, oh, go on then. You've piqued my interest in the Random People channel. Another subscriber on its way. Thank you so much, Nesbo9. Now, though, it's time to increase the number of subscribers on the John Cedars channel by introducing some lyrical madness in the form of Sing Along with Arthur.
Good morning, everyone. For today, I thought to be a bit more serious.
Oh.
And try to do a more regular type of song that really expresses our reasons for being here. And I will sing a song that expresses love, friendship, sense of community, and a sense of belonging during this lockdown and while recovering from religion, from cultish oppression, and so on. And last week, Lloyd gave me this idea when talking about
you dare blame it on me, Arthur.
when talking about a certain female artist, and I would like to sing one of my favorite songs from her repertoire, and it featured in a highly acclaimed cartoon. Actually, two of them. One was the first part.
Yeah,
yes,
I know where you're going with.
The first part of A Land Before Time. So you all know the songs. And Lloyd, what's the title of the song?
Oh gosh, I know what you mean. Land Before Time. I can't remember the name of the song though.
With the dinosaurs?
Yeah,
if we hold on
exactly.
Together.
That's right.
I know our dreams will never die. We've had our sing along with Arthur, so that was really interesting. Thank you.
We knew we'd get you to sing eventually on here, Lloyd.
It needed a holiday frame of mind.
Yeah. All right,
Sorry,
Arthur.
I don't mean to steal your thunder, Arthur.
Let me share the screen right here. Hopefully it okay. Do we have a screen? Yeah, we have our screen, and let's hit play. Don't lose your way with each passing day. You've come so far, don't throw it away. Live, believe it, dreams are for weaving, wonders are waiting to start. Live your story, faith, hope, and glory. Hold to the truth in your heart. If we hold on together, I know our dreams will never die. Dreams see us through to forever, where clouds roll by. For you and I, souls in the wind must learn how to bend. Hold to the star, hold on to the end. Valley, mountain, there is a fountain, washes our tears all away. Words are swaying, someone is praying. Please let us come home to stay. If we hold on
bedroom there
together, I know our dreams will never die. Dreams see us through to forever, where clouds roll by. For you and I
agree, Eric. I'm emotional too.
when we are out there in the dark, we'll dream about the sun. In the dark, we'll feel the light, warm our hearts, everyone. If we hold on together, I know our dreams will never die. Dreams see us through to forever, where as high as souls can fly, the clouds roll by. For you and I.
Oh,
Very
wow.
nice.
Oh, awful.
Just too much.
Linstone says, "Do I laugh or cry? What are you doing to me, Arthur?" A spectrum of emotion at my side as well, Simon, to be honest. Fortunately, to help us process all of these complex emotions is a professional music artist who can give his thoughts and who seemed to be genuinely digging that song as it was being sung. So, Cliff, what are your thoughts?
So that brought back some good memories for me. Land Before Time. I don't know how many they got to, 11 or 12 or some ungodly number like that. But yeah, that was a great song right there. Arthur, I would like to ask.
12.
Yeah.
How long?
The
How long does it
dinosaurs
take
are now
you to-
extinct. Move on.
I was wondering after a certain point. I feel like I was like in the second grade and like they were already on like number 8. So I felt like they were just, I don't know. I really don't know what number they got to, but those were very enjoyable movies, and I'm glad you made me feel some kind of nostalgia as I reflected on where I was at that point in my life when I first heard that song. So thank you, Arthur.
You're very welcome.
Well,
Hey,
thank
Cliff,
you, Arthur.
Any chance, Cliff, with a little bit of auto tuning, a little bit of studio work, that maybe that could be a
Why would
backing
you
little
auto-tuning?
vocal clip?
What are
for
you
the
saying
next
here,
track?
Sasha? Why would there be any need for auto-tuning?
Yeah.
Just to
Clarify what you mean there.
Just to downplay how amazing it was. I mean, we can't give people too much, so it could be the lead vocal for your next track, Cliff.
Maybe so. Yes, you never know. It seems like every song that Arthur does is a possible lead vocal to my next track. So you never know. It's all a
Cliff,
once you guys put the
when asked-
playlist together.
Arthur, when asked about the possibility of having you on one of his songs in the future, Fifth said, "quote You never know." Does that fill you with hope?
You never know.
Yes, yeah, there is a possibility.
There's absolutely a possibility. Yes.
It's like in the Dumb and Dumber scene where he says, "So you're saying there's a chance?"
What's all that 1 in a million talk?
Rianne says, "Brilliant, Arthur." Vicky Well says, "Bravo, bravo." Melanie says, "Hi, Cliff Henderson. Thank you for your beautiful music."
Oh, thank you, Melanie. I appreciate you. Hopefully, you guys checked out the new video. I'm trying to get to 1,000 on that one as well. So if you guys haven't, seen that one, hope you guys watch it.
Yeah, outstanding
check
work.
out the latest video where Cliff, it's a collab, isn't it? And you're in front of the Staples Center, and it's very beautifully shot. So please do check out that video. I will put a link in the description.
I appreciate it.
Along with a link to Cliff's album. Hominum Cockroach on Twitch says, "Oh, it was beautiful. Made me in tears. Lovely voice. Thank you, Arthur." And Arthur, they've actually put love hearts there and a flower. Since your rise to fame on the lockdown live stream, have you had an increase in shall we say, admirers?
Yeah, there's Team Arthur. Everybody's talking about Team Arthur.
Yeah. Maybe that should be my next T-shirt range. Try and profit your popularity.
And to answer the Cliff's curiosity, there are 14 videos for the Land Before Time series.
Wow,
last one
14?
Released. Yes,
Whoa.
14.
Land Before Time 14.
Yeah, the last one released in 2016.
Did it have humans in it?
I haven't seen it. I just checked the Wikipedia this very instant.
Let's not say that they're flogging a dead horse or anything, but damn, that's a lot of episodes.
Surely by 14 they're starting to overlap with Jurassic Park, you know.
Well, that's nothing if you compare to the series of direct-to-video Scooby-Doo movies that have been over 30 titles. Since
I wasn't allowed to watch Scooby-Doo movies. No. This whole thing about were you guys allowed to watch Scooby-Doo movies?
There were ghosts in that.
Yep.
I wasn't. So okay.
So
this is all stuff that we started watching after we left. I guess we're grown. We're gonna watch these Scooby-Doo movies now. We're free.
You regress. I had to watch the whole.
You know what? Like Shaggy says that. Like, man, witnesses are not allowed to watch Scooby-Doo movies. Zoinks!
There's nothing this guy can't do. I swear.
Impersonation.
Indeed. But maybe we can just go around the panel as to what we weren't allowed to watch. Maybe that would be an interesting line of conversation, because in all seriousness, there will be people watching this who perhaps don't know too much about Jehovah's Witnesses. They're just here for the banter. And they're not aware of how controlling the organization is in terms of people's upbringing. So what shows or what films do you recall not being allowed to watch when you were younger?
Smurfs was a big one.
Yes.
And they were quite big when I was a kid. And I don't know, I quite liked blue people. And so it was I felt very, yes. It was so Oh my God. Arthur, do all the theme tunes if you can. That'd be great. The Brady Bunch wasn't good because of a mixed family. I don't know. There are more.
Yes, definitely those two. And of course, Smurfs was because, as we've all spoken about, Smurfs were part of the Satanic Panic. They were demon possessed, and that it happened in the Assembly Hall in Perth. I'll have you all know, Western Australia, that a Smurf jumped up, looked up at the little kid who was playing with him on the floor of the Assembly Hall, and said, "I'm out of here," and walked on out of the thing, therefore proving that Satan was in control of Smurfs. Now, of course, that urban myth has been promoted the whole world over, not just by Jehovah's Witnesses, but by Mormon kids and fundamentalist Christian kids. They've all been told the story of the Smurf that was possessed by the devil. So yes, we weren't allowed to watch Smurfs.
Yeah, it was even
Michael Mesher is saying Michael Jackson Thriller video.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's throw it open to those of you watching along on the live chat. Do give us your thoughts and recollections. Debbie Aquino says the Harry Potter movies were a no-no.
Yeah.
I'm actually seeing those popping up. They've just been added to our Netflix here in Croatia. So all of a sudden, all of these Harry Potter movies are popping up, and I haven't seen a single one of them. And I frankly, I don't know where to begin, and I don't even know whether I should begin, because I tried watching Ghostbusters for the first time a few months back, and I started with Ghostbusters 1, and I couldn't get through the film because I don't think it's aged very well. It was just, I can imagine, and I'm annoyed in a way, because I thought, if I'd watched this in the 80s as a kid, this would mean something to me, and I would want to watch it all the way through, because these would all be good memories. I would be, it would be nostalgic for me. But if you just watch the film purely on its own basis, its own grounds, not having that attachment, you can't get through it. It's unwatchable. So,
Lloyd, do you know where to start with Harry Potter? I have a beautiful starting point.
Number one. Marco seems to be losing his mind at this
So the thing is, those keys are very hard to hit. You know, that's quite a complicated song, and
they are hard to hit.
It's called Hedwig. It's called Hedwig's Theme by John Williams, the theme of Harry Potter. But yet, while I was studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, I also was told to delete my Harry Potter films.
Yeah.
Oh, can we talk about what we had to delete and throw away? But just slightly off topic, music. The amount of unbelievable music that I had to throw out in my teenage and late teen years. Yep. I'm talking classic albums and stuff that I just wish I could have kept. But yes, the same thing, because there was a stigma, there was a taboo aspect to the music. Not to mention, well, we were talking about movies.
Cliff, don't you reference this in your songs, the fact that you were dissuaded from rap when you were younger?
Yeah, definitely rap. My dad, I remember, it sounds like silly to say now, but like, I remember my dad walking in and like, what are you listening to? You know, and like kind of taking my headphone, not in an aggressive way, but I guess he was trying to, in his mind, he was trying to do his due diligence and just, you know, be aware of what I was being entertained by. And I don't know how, some of you probably are familiar with Nate Dogg. And I was listening to a song by Nate Dogg and Dr. Dre, which was like, even for me, who I was trying to venture into like listening to rap, was a little like kind of on the heavy side as far as what would have been deemed inappropriate, you know, for a witness. So he heard that, and it was like, oh man, it was a bad situation. I think I like lost my microphone privileges. I was like 12. You know, and I think my dad was like, "Oh my goodness, if you're listening to this, you know, you don't qualify." He like told the rest of the elders he was an elder. So, but yeah, no, there was definitely a lot of things. Because as far as me, you know, rapping, I'm not gonna go into like a long story, but as far as me rapping, when I made my first song or whatever, I was probably like 11 or 12. You know, and there, you know, it wasn't anything with any language or any like content that would have been objectionable per se. It was just the stigma of rap itself, just that style of music, right? So like, yeah, that was definitely like one time I had wrote out a song, and my sister, because of the snitch culture in Jehovah's Witnesses, my sister found one of my songs that I had written out, gave it to my mom, and then they called me into the room. My dad and my mom called me into the room. My mom was crying like I had like murdered somebody or something. It was the craziest thing in the world. It was just a rap song, like, you know, like fairly harmless, but that's how serious, you know, they took it. And so, yeah, so from music to, let me know if I'm going like too far.
No, that's interesting, because you see a similar reaction in the latest JW broadcasting when footage emerges of a little brother checks the older brother's phone and finds that he's been partying, And the way they're all reacting, it's like he's like a serial killer or something.
Yeah.
It's that kind of ridiculous overreaction, which I can imagine was going on in your family, you know?
And you know,
I mean, and you know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, please.
No, I was just gonna say, if you think about, like, especially as a young child with something that's, you know, relatively harmless, and it being demonized to that extent, right? Like you start to think like, wow, how could I, you know, what kind of person am I to like something that Jehovah hates so much, you know, or something that's so terrible? And I think it, you know, it creates these, you know, it's very harmful, I think, over the years as that keeps happening, whether it's music or movies or wanting to be involved in sports or school politics or whatever it is, right? It's like these very innocent things that, you know, you're taught are these terrible things that you know, Jehovah's going to destroy you over, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's like one of the main things from my childhood that I'm still to this day trying to unpack, and still trying to say, like, okay, I want to make sure I don't have any of that left, you know, any of that just feeling guilty over kind of random things, you know, trying to weed all of that out. But it's a
Cliff,
process.
I think that's exactly it. It's the fact that was ingrained upon us as adolescents, as children and adolescents, that fear, obligation, guilt, that we were effectively self-policing for things that weren't actually wrong. And as you referenced, Lloyd, with the latest JW broadcasting video, they're basically teaching the 8-year-olds or 10-year-olds, however old, at that age that boy was, to not only snitch on your family members, but to snitch on yourself. So you get to a point where you feel guilty. So I know in my case, you know, I had a whole lot of albums and music that I thought was amazing. You know, LL Cool J, De La Soul, Run DMC, Beastie Boys, all these things. And then I suddenly got the attack of the guilt, thinking that I was a bad person for liking that stuff. And so forced myself to have to throw these things away as if they were possessed by demons. Therefore, I'm feeling really bad. Self-esteem is completely ruined because I've offended Jehovah, when it's effectively just music. You know, what's so bad about De La Soul? Like, what was the problem with their raps? It was lyrical, it was artistic, and yet we were forced to make ourselves feel like it was something that had to be condemned. That's toxic for children to be raised.
I think, especially with you, Cliff, like if what's being said is bad is your creative way of expressing yourself, that must be quite hard then, because if for years, you know, your talents are being put down, that must be quite hard to then readjust your head as to actually, these are things I'm good at, people acknowledge, and without that lens that they sort of put on you.
Yeah, definitely. And like, you know, for whatever reason, that's the genre of music that spoke to me. You know, there was a long stretch of time. I think there are other genres that I appreciate now, but there was a long stretch of time where rap was really the only genre that really spoke to me. You know, that I really appreciated listening to or creating. You know, as far as music, and like going to Bethel, for example, being in Wallkill for a little while. That was like a whole nother thing, because when you fill out the application, especially back then, it asks, have you listened to rap, I think, in the last year or something. So I literally, the year before, you know, I applied, I think I stopped listening to it. And I was trying to listen to these other forms of music, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with any form of music, but I think all of us can relate to, like, we gravitate to whatever we gravitate towards, you know. So it was kind of like trying to force myself to kind of replace this thing that in my heart, in my, you know, just inside of myself, it wasn't bad. It was actually very creative and something that, like, I really appreciated, you know. So it's just this kind of this constant, like, mental conflict that you're engaging in, and it's very tiring.
I hadn't even thought about the fact, Cliff, that because you, like you say, you went to Bethel. I hadn't even considered that, because we're talking about, you know, being limited in what music we can listen to or what films we can watch. It's one thing to have kind of overprotective, strict parents, you know, limiting you in that way. It's another thing entirely to literally have a form that says, if you want to serve God in this way, you need to not listen to this particular genre of music that we don't like, for a year. Otherwise, you can't join, and you can't serve God in this way.
Exactly. Yeah, and there were people that probably did listen to it and just check the no box. And obviously, I have no judgment for those people, whatsoever, if that's what they did. But I was, in my mind, I was really trying to say, like, I was thinking, if anything, like, this might be triggering. I don't want to trigger anybody, especially at this stage. But I was thinking, like, well, if I'm going to God's house, like, I definitely want to be honest and all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, it was interesting getting to Bethel and realizing that there was a lot of guys that were like trying to what's the word, trying to like not acknowledge, or repress is the word I'm looking for. They were trying to repress their love of this genre of music. And you could tell certain beats would come on and people would start nodding their heads and stuff like that, and be like, man, we're all in the same struggle. We're all trying to pretend we don't like this and like listening to some random genre of music that doesn't necessarily speak to us, for whatever reason. So yeah, that was a very interesting, thing. Like, what I experienced at Bethel is it depended on what kind of car group you were in, what kind of people, but you could get around a certain group of people and like somebody would put on an instrumental, a rap instrumental, right? No words, of course. And then somebody would just start rapping, like, just to kind of fill everybody out. It was so stupid. Like, we're all kind of tiptoeing around and kind of see how strict everybody is. And it was so unnatural,
I got an example of that. I got an example of exactly that clip. So I don't know if you guys remember early 90s, there was a group called Us Three. They did a hip hop version of an old jazz track called Cantaloupe. And it was the original track had rapping on it, as well as fantastic samples of some jazz stuff. We were allowed to, or we felt comfortable listening to the orchestral version that didn't have the rap in it. So as soon as the version with the rap was on, most of us guys were not sure whether we were allowed to or should be listening to that, or maybe have that really at a low volume in your Bethel room, because technically that's a genre of music that's not okay. And yet it's absolutely fine. It's a brilliant track, well put together, well produced. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we couldn't have it purely because there was spoken word.
Right.
You guys have reminded me that that when you got in trouble, that there were privileges that you could lose. I just realized that as a woman, as a Jehovah's Witness, there were no privileges really.
Good point.
We didn't we didn't quite have microphone responsibilities or anything else. We just couldn't.
Unless you were pioneering.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Yes, and when Cliff was relating his experience, I remembered some lyrics that went like this: "Yo, Jehovah bless me, fill in my application. I want to go to Bethel to serve the witness nation. I am a humble brother. I need no ovation. Yeah."
Nice. Thank you for that, Arthur.
I'm telling you, amazing.
Almost like a reprise to the Sing Along with Arthur segment, almost. Rianne says that she seems to indicate that she wasn't allowed to watch Disney films. Good grief, that is.
I want to talk about Disney.
Yeah, please. Please, Cliff.
Okay. So, look, I'm just very briefly say how it was in my household, which now I look back and I think it was very strange, and I would love to hear from everybody else. So, like, in my household, Disney movies, right, specifically, there were some Disney movies that had, like, more what they would classify as, like, spiritism, right? Like, more magic and stuff than others.
Magic,
like, for example, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, we couldn't watch. Sleeping Beauty, we couldn't watch. But like Lion King, that had like maybe a little bit, or like Pinocchio or stuff like, it's like there were levels to it. So there were certain movies. I feel like every Disney movie, or not every Disney movie, but a lot of Disney movies had like magic or something in it. But I guess it just depended on how much of the movie it was, So I'm curious to hear you guys' experiences if that was the same with you guys.
I was allowed to watch Disney movies. I think. Well, this is the thing that I think it's worth noting, is that everyone's experience is going to be slightly different depending on where they come from, what their parents were like, and what their local congregation was like.
Yeah.
So I don't remember there being anything really about Smurfs in my particular part of the world. and it's similar for Deanna. In fact, Deanna has Smurf toys for Jessica, and her mother doesn't bat an eyelid over it. So I think that was kind of a geographic thing, depending on how the JW grapevine worked with the rumor mill over those ridiculous stories and that kind of thing. I can relate to this. Annika P, neighbours full of immorality. So to bring this back onto an Aussie theme, Neighbours, an Aussie soap opera, was on UK television around about the time kids were getting home from school. And we were just not allowed to watch it. I think my sister still did watch it because she was kind of a bit cheeky like that. But I took it very seriously that I wasn't to watch Neighbours because it contained immorality.
We had a blanket rule on soaps. We weren't allowed to watch soaps because they must have said something at some point about it being a continuing drama, and that was an issue. So we didn't have any soap. My sister, in her late teens, her and her Jehovah's Witness friends all got up and walked out of Dirty Dancing, the film. Unbelievably. I still find that hilarious. I still can't find the scene.
My life.
Oh my God, beautiful.
You triggered Arthur again. Arthur's off and away.
Yeah, that's a great song. I really love Time of My Life.
Here's one that'll really hit you, Lloyd. Star Wars was absolutely out for me growing up. My mum used to enjoy watching
Star Wars. Sorry.
Yeah, Star Wars was an
you
absolute...
went to Star Wars?
Oh, no. I never watched Star Wars until I got to Bethel. And I realized all the guys at Bethel were watching it. So I watched Star Wars. That's when I got into all my sci-fi. Star Wars, Star Trek, Next Generation. Absolutely loved it.
And realized funny, but I thought your mother wasn't a JW.
No, so Mum
did that fly?
Mum would watch Star Wars, and Dad and I would come home from the meeting. Mum, who's not a JW, would have it on, and there was just this implied culture I was to not watch it, that he would sort of look down on Mum for watching Star Wars because, of course, it's the battle of good and evil and dark spirits and all that sort of stuff. So, yes, I grew up thinking Star Wars was condemned, and then I go to Bethel, the house of God, and I realize everybody watches Star Wars. It's completely okay. And so I think what you're saying about regional things or culture of our particular family applies.
But you've hit on another interesting dynamic here, which is that apart from messing up with our development, because we're basically cut off from major cultural things that were happening, Ghostbusters, you could say, was a cultural phenomenon, as was Star Wars. But you've also mentioned that this sort of prudishness, extreme prudishness, has an impact on the family dynamic, because you're then presumably looking down on your mother for watching this stuff that's supposed to be evil.
Exactly right. That's toxic.
Definitely.
All of this stuff. It's just a great example or a tragic example of how boundaries were overstepped in our normal development. We weren't allowed to develop our own sense of what would you call it, integrity or honesty or ethics. We weren't allowed our own conscience to dictate what we felt was appropriate. It had to be prescribed to us by an organization or by somebody else who was trying to interpret what the organization said.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one more if I can share, actually.
Sure.
One more thing. So just kind of along the same lines, like what Sasha's talking about, going to Bethel and then starting to watch like certain things. So like football, I know for most of the world, football is what we in the United States would consider soccer. But for the sake of this conversation, I'm talking about American football.
Yeah, rugby for softies, we call that.
I've heard you say that. That's fine. I don't play football, so I'm not personally offended. But I am a fan. So, so the acronym National Football League, NFL. A lot of you guys who are fans or who are in the States will recognize that. So what they started calling it for years, even before I got to Bethel, was NFL stands for not for Los. Loesch would literally, the governing body member, Garrett Loesch, would literally, I remember before I got to Bethel, he actually came to my assembly hall and was like, these gladiator sports where men dress up and they crash up against each other and it's blah, blah, right? So he's saying all these things. And actually, not so fun fact, a part of his talk appeared in the, I think it was called the Live with Jehovah's Day in Mind, the one with the minor prophets, right? Anyway, I know this is all very triggering, but anyway, yes. So some of that, like, came into that. So it was kind of interesting. There was this, so my dad, who, so Loesch came, while I was at Bethel, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to tell like a super long story, but while I was at Bethel, my dad was back home, and Loesch went to his assembly, and he gave his football is terrible and not for Christians talk, right? So it was the Super Bowl, and my dad called me up at the Super Bowl, during the Super Bowl while I was in New York and he was in California, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "I'm watching the Super Bowl with everybody, all the people here at Bethel. What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, what do you mean you're at Bethel watching the Super Bowl?" He was under the impression because Loesch went out there and was saying all that, he thought it was like an organizational thing that like football is banned. And for a lot of people, they did feel that way. I'd be curious to hear if somebody else had that, experience. But like, so my dad was under that impression, but we were all up there, watching it. So it was just one of those things that, a governing body member could go to a part of the world or whatever and just give a talk about whatever it is. And everybody would be like, okay, I guess that's the organizational stance. And my dad just trying to be my dad loves football. He was, American football. And he was just trying to be a good witness. And he was the elder and all that stuff. And he didn't even watch the Super Bowl, which is like a big deal, So anyway, it's just interesting to kind of see how that would happen.
It's very much the same. If we had very much the same with Australian rules football or AFL, it's a massive sport. It's everybody in Bethel came from different parts of Australia, so they all
really
supported
showing their arm muscles. They have a slightly different shirt so they can show
they're
off
proper
their
athletes.
arm
Yes,
okay.
And just to give a plug for the Fremantle Dockers, just no plugs here. So anyway, we would all represent the teams from the parts of Australia that we would we came from. We would set up one of the Bethel lounges, which we would book out with massive televisions and sound systems and enjoy watching that. And I came from a background where my father enjoys AFL, but I wasn't allowed to speak about. So I'll give you an example. If I would talk to him about the game, I'd say, "Oh, we did really well on the weekend. Do you love the way he'd say, "Not we, the team did well. We are not the team." So there was this differentiation between. We weren't allowed to identify as the team. We were just people who watched the team from the outside. So,
I mean, he was right though, Sasha, because JW's Witnesses did not participate in that game. So we should only be,
that's true.
The tribe.
May I present my point of view on this subject?
Sure.
Because actually, NFL stands for not foolish. AFL stands for all foolish. So actually, witnesses, rank and file witnesses.
Just in case anyone's wondering what's happening at this point, Arthur is trying to do a German accent. Proceed, Arthur.
So the rank and file witnesses are being discouraged from watching football, from watching violent sports. But there is an exemption for exemplary Bethelites.
Well,
so when you are at Bethel, you are having this privilege that other rank and file witnesses do not have.
Hey, Lloyd, we know how you feel.
Arthur's audio.
So let's make it all foolish.
Incredibly triggering.
Maybe you
Burke High. I'm determined to read Manuke's comments.
Do it.
Please let me read Manuke's comment. Pokemon and Powerpuff Girls were a no-no for me. Yes.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well, actually, it's not Pokemon. It's Preach the Word.
Sophia Isabel is it Freid or Frada says, "I'm glad I grew up in Portugal. I saw Scooby-Doo and the Smurfs. I think some things got lost in translation." Again, I think you're right, Sophia. I think a lot of it was geographic, which again goes to highlight how it isn't really Jehovah's united organization, because it really just depends on what part of the country, what part of the world you're in.
Mind you, I put to you all, Sophia, Lloyd, you watch the Smurfs, and look, here you are as apostates out of the organization. I rest my case.
Yes, Satan's work was done there. Yeah.
You know what? I don't get. They really didn't let you watch any of the shows where you had that sort of dark spirit, evil spirit, and you had a good force and a bad force.
Yeah.
Absolutely no difference to the Bible. Like,
yes.
If you look at Harry Potter, so many of the things in Harry Potter, you could almost pinpoint the same stories in the Bible. Like,
I mean, if you think about it, you're not allowed to watch You're not allowed to watch Ghostbusters, but you are allowed to read about how Lot threw his daughters at the crowd, so that the crowd could violate them and not the angels.
Exactly. So many things, and also how stupid of Lot, because apparently they were all gay men outside their door, and so for him to offer his daughters was just like completely not understanding it at all.
What was he thinking? Like he didn't understand how that worked.
This will solve the situation.
He's reading it.
He's like, let me give you some women.
I know.
And doesn't that just highlight
your homosexual lust?
The inappropriateness of the contents of the Bible? Let's say that here they were editing what we were allowed to watch, and as has been broadly, very well brought out in a lot of your rebuttals, and yet children are being subjected to watching things that is grossly inappropriate, reading books about things that are grossly inappropriate, and the society needs to take account and say that whilst they're presenting the content of the Bible, it's inappropriate for children. That's gross.
Bill the Pimo says, on the other hand, I had a huge collection of Smurf comics and toys, and my grandpa recorded the cartoons for me to watch. None on my family thought they had anything to worry about. Again, I really do think the Smurfs thing.
They did it.
Geographic, yeah.
And yet you're out of the truth, Bill.
It did. It still did its job, yeah. Rianne says, I love Harry Potter. I binge watched it when my fever was through the roof last week. Rianne's Netflix seems to be similar to mine.
I gotta catch up on Harry Potter.
Yeah.
We have the full Harry Potter and the Fantastic Beasts movies on HBO Go.
Eric Larson says Harry Potter was the main one that I remember being mentioned from the platform quite a bit. I can remember, well, that's the reason why I didn't watch it, was because it was actually mentioned from the platform. So,
what about Twilight?
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say Twilight. That was super controversial.
Yeah.
Twilight was a little bit after my time, though. By the time Twilight came along, I wasn't really.
But the way that was condemned, the organization even, had sort of digs at it with little pictures in the background, implying that that's the story they were talking about. And that's just
vampire love or something like that.
That's right.
The best thing I ever heard from on the stage of someone trying to discourage you to listen to something was the guy who said, and they come up with these awful band names such as like Demented Nuns. And then you realize he was referring to Twisted Sister. And I loved it so much.
Great.
I thought that was kind of funny. A little bit of stand-up in a public talk was quite good.
Demented Nuns is good.
I don't think I know that reference.
Twisted Sister.
Manukel says, no Rolling Stones, and I remember my father talking about Hotel California. Of the hotel of the. You see, this irritates me because I personally consider Hotel California is my favorite song. Let's just put it that way. And I got into it in part because my dad enjoyed the Eagles. In fact, the Eagles, possibly one of the only bands that Dad enjoyed listening to that was actually cool. He would listen to all sorts of crazy stuff, but I did relate. He did listen to Billy Joel, which I liked, and he listened to the Eagles, and I loved Hotel California. And I can imagine some elders, there's hidden meaning in these lyrics,
It's all part of the Satanic Panic, that whole era of the Satanic Panic.
Conspiracy. And,
wasn't that the one they played backwards? Didn't they play that one backwards? I remember there was this cassette tape around where it had played backwards.
That was Stairway to Heaven, wasn't it? If you play it backwards or something.
Yes, Stairway to Heaven. Yeah.
If you ever go down the rabbit hole of watching some of Seth Andrews' fantastic speeches, he did one all about the satanic panic of the 80s and mentioned a lot of the music groups that were condemned by fundamentalist Christian groups, including Jehovah's Witnesses. The JWs were no different to all the other Christian groups at the time. And yes, specifically mentions all the backmasking tracks and the ones that were accused of being portals for the devil to enter our soul and take us over.
Yeah.
Actually, there was an urban legend that when you play Stairway to Heaven backwards, you get Highway to Hell.
Thank you for that, Arthur. Melanie, I feel so glad that across the globe we have experienced the same stupidity with dorky rules of the religion, and we can all laugh about it now. It's brilliant. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. We're still here in one piece. We may have been culturally stifled, but we're still in one piece, and we can laugh about it. So yeah.
And
that's
so on that
Melanie.
note,
thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point, Melanie. But on that note, can I just share a couple of interesting points that sort of touch on this? And Sherry and I were talking about this the other day. So sort of in the absence of Sherry doing her comfort corner. But that all of these things we've been talking about are evidences of how appropriate boundaries were overlooked and how we weren't allowed to develop our own emotional growth, our own boundaries as we developed. And so it's so important even now as we're navigating our way out of the JW world to recognize that we're allowed to establish our own boundaries. And that might be in our personal choice of entertainment, or it might be in not having others inflict their things upon us. Perhaps we've got family who are trying to inflict religious dogma back onto us again now that we're not attending. But it's so important to build our own personal emotional space. And I did some research into the importance of boundaries. It's basically like putting a no trespassing fence or sign and fence around ourselves. It's allowing others to see that we have a choice to determine the path of our own life, and that others don't have a right to tell us what we should like, what we should do, how we should act, how we should grow. We can set boundaries for, it says, personal space, emotions and thoughts, possessions, time and energy, and culture, religion, and ethics. And setting boundaries for ourselves and honoring the boundaries of others isn't a textbook science, but we can learn ways of taking charge of our life and how we can set clearer rules, even with our family, and assert our space when it comes to strangers. And anyway, it went into detail about how even with family members, we need to set appropriate boundaries, that they don't have a right to encroach upon us and impose their views, their ethics, their standards, and their rules upon us. So just really important to redefine boundaries and let people know that they can't overstep that.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a good point, Sasha. I think one of the hardest things about leaving is actually learning to find the things that your preferences are. Otherwise, you're just so used to being a receiver and not used to actually thinking for yourself. It's one of the hardest things. And I remember someone said to me, "It's like who's got the keys to your car?" And that analogy really works for me. So I just think, well, if I've got the keys to my car, then I know, when I want to, use it. But if someone else can just grab my keys and, and dictate things to me, then that's the, that's a good analogy that works.
That's a great point.
I remember that analogy from Public Talk, actually.
Oh, shut up. Oh my God.
I'm serious. I'll stop because I feel like I've triggered enough, so I won't go into the story way. But anyway, yes, we can reapply it to life after Watchtower. So I like that. Let's just focus on that.
Yeah. And one of the things too, it went into detail too, and it said that the benefits of setting appropriate boundaries is that it actually helps us build proper self-esteem. And that's one of the things I think that we would all agree in our upbringing as Jehovah's Witnesses. Our personal self-esteem was sort of smothered and squashed, and we weren't allowed to grow. And so building boundaries now, we get better self-esteem, we conserve our emotional energy, we get that independence and agency that we deserve. We get to live our real life and the life that we're entitled to lead, because we're setting boundaries on others imposing. So yeah, no one can grab our keys off us.
Now, I also have a question. What importance does it have to have the keys of your car, but not have the keys to the kingdom?
Oh God.
I mean, such a good point.
Very good point. Very good point there, Arthur. And actually, I need your help, Arthur, on one of these comments because a song is mentioned, and I can't, off the top of my head, remember how it goes. So I'm hoping you can help.
Yes.
Manuk Burkhage says, I remember dancing to the song. My milkshakes bring all the boys to the yard.
Oh yeah, that's
this.
My milkshakes brings all the boys to the yard. The boys to the yard. Yeah, it was featured on Jason Friedberg and Aaron Zeltzer's date movie with Alison Hannigan. Yeah, it was.
Thank you. Now I remember how the song goes. Thank you.
So here she was, as an 8-year-old, being told that this song was bad. She hadn't even thought about it in any negative way. How sad.
I thought milkshakes as in drinks, and now my father was talking about something. I think she's sexual. But we need to thank you for that comment, Manuk. We need to welcome Sherry to the dying embers of our lockdown live stream. How are you, Sherry?
Hey, Sherry.
Hey, Sherry.
I'm in the car. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. That's great. I'm good. I've just obviously finished the day at work and have made my way back to the car. And I thought, well, it's a few minutes before the live stream ends, so I'd pop in and say hello, everybody.
How's it going, Sherry?
We've sort of had a little bit of a comfort corner from Sasha, so presumably you're fine with that. You don't have anything to add.
Completely fine with that. Yes.
It was about boundaries.
I think Sherry wants to add a fear factor.
Oh.
We've already had the fear factor because you just sang my milkshake rings bring the boys to the whatever. Sherry, we've been talking about things that we were denied as children, whether it's music or films or what have you, soap operas. Do you have any standout memories of being denied various cultural things?
Cultural things. There's a very sad story to tell, but it might traumatize everybody.
All right.
My sister and I, we really wanted Cabbage Patch dolls.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Remember them? And we couldn't afford them. So my Aunt Bev, awesome Auntie Bev, she bought 2 dolls for us, and we just loved them. But we couldn't enjoy just the simple innocence of little girls loving their dolls, because we had it ingrained into us that you shouldn't love anything more than Jehovah. Jehovah comes first. And my sister and I were worried that we cared for our dolls more than we cared for Jehovah. And so Sasha's groaning because he can't believe I'm saying this.
No, babe, no judgment. I feel for the little girl who went through this. Yeah, explain it. Yeah.
It's actually really hard to say these words because it's really disturbing. But I remember vividly I would have been maybe 9, 10, 11, and my sister was younger than that. She would have been 7 or 8. We would discuss this about how much we loved our dolls. And so to prove to Jehovah that we loved him more than our dolls, we would throw them at the wall.
Oh, good.
Wow.
Just to prove that these dolls didn't have a stronger hold on us. And I look back now as an adult. I think how tragic,
completely inappropriate parenting. Yeah.
And babe,
that's really sad, man.
I appreciate that you shared that with us too, and I don't want people to think that that's messed up. Let's draw a biblical comparison, because even the Bible said that Abraham was willing to take a knife to his own flesh and blood son because he had to prove that he loved Jehovah more. So here we were hearing stories like that, reading a Bible story book with a picture of a father doing that. Yeah. And then your little brain as a little growing little girl thinks, well, I can't love a doll as much as I love Jehovah, so I need to prove that. It shows how
and
many.
Yes.
I just want to make clear, though, this was not something that our parents had told us.
No.
It wasn't from them. It wasn't our parents saying, "Oh, you love your dolls too much." The thought came from the meetings. We got it from the Kingdom Hall. We got it from that indoctrination, because it comes across so strong, especially as a little child. You hear these messages about shunning and turning aside from other family. And I also remember as a child, well, probably in my early teens, it was in the 80s when that, was it a Watchtower Awake? I think it was a Watchtower article that talked about how rape victims would have to forgive their abuser. And I remember thinking at the time, oh, I don't think I could do that. That's you feel like you have to, because that's what Jehovah demands. So that messaging, that's the reason why my sister and I did that. It wasn't an instruction from parents. This was purely the religion.
It's that unhealthy love that I think is brought out in how God is represented in the Bible. And if you were in a relationship with someone who demanded that you were that way with everyone but them, you would start to respond and react that way in order to please them. So it's completely understandable, but it's just sad. Is what it is.
Yeah, that's really sad. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and gracious of you to note, Sherry, that your parents' minds were not their own. It's worth stressing that this is, again, what the organization is telling them to do, or the way the organization is programming them to think. So as tempting as it is when we're dealing with this subject to kind of be resentful towards our parents for depriving us of various cultural gems and that sort of thing, worth remembering that it's the organization that's behind all of this, not them. They were, our parents were doing their best with the hand they were dealt, and making the best of a bad situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't think they even knew that my sister and I did that. So, but then on the flip side, another favorite memory, and this is a good memory, my father was very excited when Return of the Jedi was coming.
Oh,
we lost her.
We lost Sherry.
That was beautiful timing. Oh no, there we go.
Sorry about that. I had a phone call that came through, and I just had to hang up. Return of the Jedi. And I remember my father taking my sister and I to the Return of Jedi, as not at the premiere, of course, but when it first came out. And that's a vivid memory I have of, we love Star Wars. We really enjoyed Star Wars.
Yeah.
And yet my family wouldn't let us watch Star Wars, so there we have that cultural difference.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, that's all we have time for in today's lockdown live stream. I do have a question from Unica, who says, I made it just before it finishes. Could someone please let me know what day and time are the live streams? Unica, in every single video description, there is the schedule for the live streams. And basically, they are on Saturdays and Wednesdays, but it really depends what part of the world you're in. So I've tried to put the different time zones in there. If you can join us for the next live stream, it will be obviously on Saturday on facebook.com. The addresses are at the bottom, and on Twitch. It would be lovely to have you with us. But it's been
on YouTube.
Indeed, you can watch the live stream after the event on the John Cedars YouTube channel. And as of June 12th, I come out of live stream purgatory on YouTube. So the lockdown live stream will be direct on YouTube from that point onwards. So that should be interesting, how basically I won't be able to keep up with the comments from that point. Whereas at the moment.
So on Saturday, there are at the 3 p.m. UTC and at 6:30 a.m. UTC on Wednesdays.
Absolutely.
And thanks to everyone who's watching, because honestly, as we said at the beginning, it's for everybody that's tuning in, that watches, that drops comments. We appreciate that this is just a chat amongst friends, but it's for you guys to drop comments and reach out to us on social media and so on. And we appreciate it. It's a community effort.
So thank you so much to my wonderful panel. All that remains is to thank all of you for watching. Don't forget to tune in to the next lockdown live stream on Saturday. Until then, stay safe, stay positive, and we will see you on our next show. Take care.
Bye.